Welcome in to the Betting the Pitch NFL Edition podcast. I'm your host, the real underscore G Warner, joined by at A underscore Snicker. We went 2-0 last week, week three. We went 2-0 in week two, a lowly 1-1 in our opening week, but we also did that a million miles and weeks in advance. Thank you for all the supports. That makes me at the real underscore G Warner 3-0 this year. At A underscore Snicker 2-1. Not so bad. 5-6, 83%. We've won 71% of our last 24. So you should probably bet our best bets, which we'll get to later in the show. At A underscore Snicker, how are you doing as we prepare for week four NFL?
Oh man, last week was such a great week. I just
Why is that?
I loved everything about last week. I think matchup wise, I know you always say week two is your favorite week. I week
Yes,
three is my
usually.
favorite week. It's like we've gotten just enough of a sample size for the overreactions to start pouring in, and man, we had a good week for sure. I hope you did too.
We did have a good week. I'm very pleased. You said that you were very impressed by my laying 4 points with a favorite.
I mean, I'm
You
glad you said you. People need to know that you played a favorite.
Well, people need to know I also played a -5.5 Las Vegas Raiders. So that did not go
That's
according to
well.
plan, unfortunately.
That's
But
one you don't need to. You just keep that between you and me.
yeah, it's just between you, me, and our 147 YouTube subscribers at the real underscore G Warner, our listeners and Apple Podcasts that have left a million five-star reviews at the Betting the Pitch Podcast Network. Thank you all for your support. And I did a version of the Walking Bets because I didn't have my phone on me when we recorded last week. And I don't know if it blew up. I haven't checked the ratings actually just yet. But on this episode,
Or
we're going to
back,
go
keeping
through
it.
our best bets are coming end of show. We're going to do a six pack of games. Again, we have two Monday Night Football games for reasons I can't explain. But that leaves us with a Thursday night, a Sunday night, two Monday nights, and then we're going to do our own selections as always. I usually give the floor to A underscore Snicker to give his favorite game to talk about. There's so many on this card. I'm really loving where we are in the NFL right now. So let's start with a Thursday night game. The Dallas Cowboys, a 6 point favorite on the road at the New York Giants. Total is 45.
Oh boy, we're getting. This is one of those not the most appealing Thursday night games, but we can go through some numbers here just to look at the Cowboys' dominance over the Giants. And
Yes,
you're in Dallas. I grew up a Cowboys fan. I'm not a fan anymore. I just it is what it is. But I was thinking through this today. I was like, man, I don't remember a lot of times Dallas has lost to the Giants in the last decade. But I looked it up. So starting the start of the 2017 season, the Dallas Cowboys are 13-1 against the New York Giants. And only two of those 13 wins were decided by a touchdown. No, decided by less than a touchdown.
mm.
Um,
So my
so
New York Giants plus 39.5 last year in the opening game,
wasn't it
Sunday Night
good?
Football. I don't think that won.
Man, I must have paid like minus 1,200 for that
I think
too.
I
I'm
had
so
plus
sorry.
six. I think it was or plus four. Like it might even be smaller than this currently
I think
six
we
I'm
both
looking
had
at.
that. We
Yeah,
both had
that
that. Yeah.
that that was and it was off to a good start somehow in a 40-0 loss. I think the biggest thing to talk about is and so week two I love because of overreactions. Week three you love because of overreactions to the overreactions, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
What are the reactions to the Dallas Cowboys right now with a big upset win at the Browns,
Yeah.
which everyone was in love with, then got smoked by the Saints and got gash smoked, what even was worse against the Ravens until a late comeback?
Yeah, I think we can cut through some of that noise and just talk about really even from the preseason how we felt about the Cowboys and is that they their offensive line got worse. Their defensive coordinator obviously left to take the Washington job. They bring in Mike Zimmer. Whatever you want to think about Mike Zimmer, there is a regression going to happen because I think Dan Quinn got the most out of his defenses and their turnover margin while Dan Quinn was the defensive coordinator was just insane. Like it's just not you can't replicate it. So we called for a regression with the Cowboys defense. We're seeing that they really weren't good stopping the run last year, and it's not much different this year. Um, you got usually a coaching mismatch on the other side, whereas McCarthy is usually going to be the lesser of the coaching minds in most of these games, and Dak has 1.5 targets to throw to. That's really all there is. that's the breakdown of the Cowboys. That's not an overreaction. That's what we've known this whole time. And
What
even the
happened?
really
What happened to the defense that was terrifying was because I mean they were so bad away from home last year, great at
yeah.
home, and I thought it was because of crowd noise and able to rush the passer. But then they've completely reversed that this season. What do you feel about the Cowboys? Because I guess the foreshadowing is they can't stop the run whatsoever.
So where am I at with the Cowboys in terms of like long-term projections
What?
or just like
No, more what you're thinking about their defense because that used to be where they won
oh,
football games, and then Dakota basically had some decent offensive plays, UCD Lamb, but to me, the Cowboys weren't about their offense last year and their success. It was all about their defense, the amount of turnovers they forced, the
yeah.
touchdowns they scored, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and this is well documented. This is not an original thought. It's from a lot of different pundits and experts or any kind of media you watch. The Cowboys really just had the good fortune of leaning on the defense, creating those turnovers, and then they could just kind of coast. They're very much a front running team in terms of I don't think that they're able to really come back. And you know your defense, the interior of the defense isn't strong. So what you were doing last year with when you're overmatched when you're facing overmatched teams is you're getting out to a two-score lead. And then that's when you could get Micah Parsons. That's when you had DeMarcus Lawrence, those guys just pinning their ears back and just shooting straight for the quarterback. When you're actually in these games and your offense can't just run away and hide, those pass rushers get neutralized a little bit because you're trying to move them around and they're having to, it's a non-neutral state. And
And that's
so I
why we
think
see the
offense,
Cowboys struggle so much in the playoffs
yeah,
because they win games that they blow out bad teams. And maybe
right.
that's what it is, that they're really good against bad teams. We saw them get blown out as an 11-point favorite at Arizona last year. That was away from home. I just feel
Right
like
after Trayvon Diggs went out for the season too. That was a weird one, but yes, I agree.
indeed. I guess corners matter more than I don't even know how to value. Certainly more than running backs. But
For
any
sure.
feel for so if you're gonna make a play on this game, it doesn't sound like the Giants are worth it. They had an incredible win. Didn't see that coming at Cleveland last weekend, but one of my good friends was telling me the big dog theory, just look for a big underdog and bet it was basically all you need to do. And it's worked pretty well in the NFL so far this season. Um, I don't think that the Giants +6 is going to make your card. Would 7 make it there?
Um, Maybe, but like we talked when we were trying to figure out an angle for Miami and Buffalo and just kind of previous history, and it's probably not fair to say, oh, that was the reason that the Bills won. But I think like it's fair to say, there's too much previous history to go with the Giants in this one. Um,
I mean, there's a lot that I think you can carry over from that Buffalo Miami game. I mean, of course, transitive property and all those sort of things that don't really apply, but a team that controlled another team did it again. And you'd think that the Cowboys, as a 6-point favorite, I mean, climbed up from 4.5 that I saw earlier this week. I think 6.5 was a look ahead line, so I guess not too much difference and even a little smaller. But more juice right now at Bet Online. If you don't have an account there at SportsBetting.ag, please go sign up, follow the link in the podcast description, Apple Podcast, Spotify, or on YouTube, and you get some free money. But to me, the number I think climbs from here. I don't see people betting the Giants even after a big win. I think people will look and say, well, the Ravens are a really good team. It makes sense that they ran all over Dallas. And I guess even the comeback that a lot of people saw, I think people will like Dallas more. It's with that said, road favorite. It's scary, but honestly, I don't know
yeah.
how much the Giants even get at home. I think my biggest interest in this one is under 45, which that's been climbing pretty steadily up from 43.5 as I initially saw. So, you got anything
I mean,
else?
we did have, I don't know if you saw on the market, it dropped down to like 4.5 on Monday, and then
Yep.
we had a quick move back up to 6. So I don't know if it's someone trying to push the number to a touchdown to, but then maybe, you know, just manipulate with the number to try to get a touchdown and before I don't know. But to me, six seems right.
Yeah, it's bigger than I made it, but happens. I think so. We move now to Sunday Night Football, then we'll come back and circle around to some earlier Sunday games as we get through the main card, I guess, or the at least the standalone games, even though Monday night's never alone anymore. The Buffalo Bills visit the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens a 2.5-point favorite at home. Total is 46.5 in that one.
Which Ravens? The Ravens have created this thing where they just fall apart in the second half. They play terrible. Like so, obviously 2 weeks ago it crushed them when they lose to Las Vegas outright. And then if you watch that second half against the Cowboys, there's no business for the Cowboys to be within 3 points and somewhat with a chance with Brandon Aubrey, who is by far the best kicker in the league.
That guy's
Um,
amazing.
it's unreal. So what Ravens team are we getting? Uh, I I don't know if I have a good answer for you if I've like nailed down what the Baltimore Ravens are this year. I still love I like the weapons that they have on offense. I like the two tight end set they're going with, even though Mark Andrews is it's just missing. Charlie Kohler is getting more fantasy points than Mark Andrews right now. I like the variation they have though with the tight ends. Zay Flowers is a good piece. Um, to me, like when I was watching the preseason, Buffalo, you've been higher on Buffalo, and so maybe you might have a better angle because I'm just not seeing it. Thought that their run defense might be a little suspect. Hasn't been the case so far. I thought their secondary had some pretty big holes. Haven't been exposed yet. So what are you seeing from Buffalo that hasn't really that they haven't missed a beat yet?
Well, it was really nice to see them blow out the Jaguars after the number moved directly in my face
Yeah.
from being interested in Buffalo -5.5 and thinking, well, if it ticks to 6, oh well, I push free movie coined by at @A_Schnicker. And if you push, you just get your money back. So it's like, wow, you can't go to the movies for free. So might as well be like, okay, whatever, I'll save some juice and lay the 6. But then got all the way down to 4 before game time. That was wild. Good job by the NFL market on that one. Of course, they're not going to hit 100% of the time, but you generally don't want to be on the other side, even with some kind of ugly numbers that don't matter so much, non-key numbers, I guess. But I wasn't feeling great going into it, being like, well, we're going to bet it here and see what happens and see what lesson I learn. But I've been most impressed by Buffalo's defense. I feel like their ability to get after Tua was the most important thing, and really just because to me, Miami is great at running the football. I bet the Seahawks this past weekend. And I mean, they can still run the football, but they don't have the passing threat. So without Tua there, and we've seen further quarterback injuries to make matters even worse for Miami, though I don't know anyone is a downgrade from Skylar Thompson. With that said, I think the Buffalo Bills are best at rushing the passer. The problem is the Ravens have one of the most mobile guys back there, and I'm trying to be a little bit more considerate of just quarterbacks you can't sack. It reminds me of Russell Wilson in his Seattle days before everything went horribly wrong. And Lamar Jackson, I mean, feels like a pretty cheap favorite, less than a field goal at home, which, I mean, you could argue NFL home field advantage doesn't matter very much, blah, 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 but it still feels like these teams are kind of rated equally. And you've
Yeah.
been pretty consistent about saying the Bills just lacked skilled position players. James Cook, running back, not enough to do it. And
Been
then
great though.
sure, but like it literally started last night with the dump off offense. It was literally swing passes and running backs, what felt like an entire first drive. And then we haven't seen much from the wide receiver core, and that's a big concern for me when you play real teams. I think the Ravens are a real team.
Yeah, my first thought just looking through these was, oh, I like the Ravens here. I know we were sharing what we were playing. In these smaller numbers, I'm starting to lean more towards money lines. I know that's not the most profitable way to go about your life, but just the NFL has gotten with these numbers, like two is a scary one, and it somehow feels worse
I
if
mean,
you
the
bet
Saints, Saints,
-2.
it would have worked last weekend with the Philly, especially with
Yeah.
the missed 2 point conversion late.
Um,
I my Saints play -2.5 looked dead in the water, even though they're going to win straight up. And then Saquon happened, which that guy
Saquon.
can't get him right. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's probably more in depth than we can probably have time for on this podcast. But I understand that. I just wonder, like, I'm not sure I want to see a -141 on the Ravens money line right now.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want to pay that extra price just because I feel like this is a decent chance that the Bills win this game. Sunday Night Football, though, a short home favorite when a lot of people are really chasing, whether it's their soccer losses, their baseball losses, their football losses, their college football losses, who knows? I feel like there's a good chance that we see this hit 3. Do you think it's going to get there?
You think it's going to go to 3? I feel like public perception right now is in the Bills.
I mean, it
I
can't
think
get much higher after a dominant victory against the
I
Jaguars. That's true.
I I think like if you're talking about someone chasing wins on a Sunday night after a robust weekend of putting all your money all over the place, my thought would be that people are going to go. Well, I would go with the Bills, but because
Hmm.
they've looked more impressive
I mean,
without
maybe.
doubt.
I just think the tried and true home favorites is like
Yeah,
literally, okay, I need this bet
short
to
home
win, so
favorite,
I don't have to pay my guy. Like, I know that's not everyone because DraftKings,
right?
MGM, whatever these names out there, they're not exactly like holding people outside of windows upside down like they used to be done in
You
the
got to put
olden
your money
days.
up front usually. That's
Yeah,
how that
right.
works.
Exactly. All right, so we'll move to Monday Night Football, and I think we're doing well on time, but
Okay.
we'll see when we get the little clock counting down in the corner. First game on the list, the Tennessee Titans visit the Miami Dolphins in what looks like an incredible matchup. I can see why Monday Night Football tried to get two games to try to, I guess, to protect themselves because, man, there were some dog baby Monday Night Football games for pretty much the entire ESPN contract until they started doing this. But the Titans are a pick 'em right now. The Dolphins with no quarterback to speak of. Totals
Yeah.
36 and a half in this one, just a little bit more to over, which that total keeps falling down from 39 and a half to 38 to 37 to 36 and a half is what I've seen so far.
I, I don't know. I don't want to dip too far into the fantasy realm, but like, the Dolphins are a wonderful fantasy team in terms of
It's all
skill
they are.
players.
It's all they
And
are.
it's, I wonder how much of a hit, like I'm trying to gauge how much of a hit do those players take now without like a semblance of a quarterback. Because if whether it's Skylar Thompson or Tim Boyle or whoever else, like Will Levis might be the better quarterback for the first time in the NFL.
I
He might
mean,
be the,
Skylar Thompson as a 4-point underdog at Seattle last week on the wrong coast in a late game. That was
yeah.
I wish those lines are out every week, but they won't be. And I don't think he'll be out there either. I think it's going to be a Boyle sighting.
And here's the thing is like, let's look at the Dolphins first. They're 1-2. Their one win against Jacksonville, who we've talked about a lot, just the all the issues, kind of outdated offense that they're running. They barely squeak by that one. They get blown out. This is with most of Tua in the Buffalo game.
Yep.
Like there, we could go to the other side of the ball. They have some great defensive players, but they're all rehabbing and getting healthy after ACLs and Achilles injuries. Um, so they haven't really recovered from the shell of a team we saw in the playoffs last year. Now they don't have a quarterback. They still have these skill players, but they can't get them the ball. This is even with the Titans, who have somehow
Titans 3-point favorite to the Green Bay Packers last week. That was your best bet winner from at the real underscore G Warner.
there you
Explain that
go.
one to me.
And you were apparently I was like, you see all these guys are talking about the sharps or whoever, whatever the market's on it. And apparently the whole market had Titans tickets from what I've read and what I've
God
listened to.
bless. Thank you. I mean,
So
because it hit 1.5, and I was like, oh man, now I'm starting to get like, do I really want to play? Because I'm basically just picking the road team to win straight up. But you're doing that in a lot of NFL games, and I'm not pretending that I'm always going to be in the sharp side, though I try to lean that way as much as I can.
hey,
Um,
I would prefer to cut through that. Like it is what it is. I like to gauge those things, but we need to make our bets based off what we're seeing. And so that's why, you should be applauded for that pick. But it's just
Thank
funny
you.
now, like the Titans were the side. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's not much to go with this one. Like
I
the
feel
Will
like
Levis
how are they
is
getting to 37 points is my biggest interest. If you're looking for a play on Monday night,
yeah,
especially if you want to avoid
right.
getting dangled out of a 38th floor window.
Yep.
I don't see where the points come from. The thing about Will Levis though is that he is turnover prone at this point, and once I feel like that lever goes, there aren't many guys that can kind of reel that in. Josh Allen has, but they've been very conservative with him and basically took away all his wide receivers, so he can't throw the ball deep into coverage. The
Yep.
last Monday night game we'll talk about are those Seattle Seahawks getting 3.5 points on the road at Detroit. Totals 47 in this matchup. And it is pretty juiced to over right now in terms of movement. It's been jockeying 4.5 to 3.5 to 4, back to 3.5. So this will be interesting to see where this one closes.
I mean, Seattle's just been solid. They had that terrible spot going on across the country to the Patriots, and it was a slow start, but they figured it out. And I really like the Seattle team. Like this could be a team we may want to look at like what are the division odds right now in the NFC West? Just with San Francisco's issues and the Rams kind of being
I mean, San
really well.
Francisco definitely has some issues.
Um,
What we
this
had
is
initially
great
on the
podcasting.
NFC, so NFC West initially,
Yeah.
it's a long time ago. We had the 49ers minus 210, the Rams plus 325, Seattle 750, and Arizona 12 to 1. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And before Christian McCaffrey was getting on flights to Germany to rehab with Bayer Leverkusen. But I imagine those
Here, I
that
can pull it up
changed
real quick.
significantly.
I
Yeah.
mean, I just want to see this because I guess what I'm leading into is like the Seahawks look like the most solid team in that division. I love their defensive line. McDonald, obviously, it's feeling like he was the brain of the Ravens defense. He's brought all that with him. That, defense we've talked about can be an instant flip. You can get that with effort and attention to detail. I feel like they have that. And I like Todd Grubbs. He's from University of Washington. We're very familiar with that University of Washington offense. It works well for them because of the wide receivers they have. Like you have three receivers that complement each other, along with a tight end that's not bad. Um, yeah, they looked really good. And something with Detroit's just off. That something do you agree with that? Like it just doesn't feel like their offense is performing at the level that it should be or could be.
I feel like Dan Campbell is a heartthrob and has somehow, I mean, while doing Applebee's commercials with menus over his face, I think he's instructing people what to order in a secret form because people might hear it. I think he's in just like the lipstick on said pig. Jared Goff is still Jared Goff. He still makes really bad decisions, really bad throws. I mean, the indoor performance versus outdoor, I think a lot of times really was just Jared Goff at home. And he went to another dome team and plays really well at home. And there's not a lot of games on the schedule that are outdoors. But I think that just is hiding like the canary in the coal mine to me. I feel like is Jared Goff makes bad decisions and in close games, it's a really, really bad thing. I don't know. So back Seattle last week. Had them as my survivor pick week one, which actually did survive, thank God, but only for Saquon to drop that along with a game-winning pass and touchdown, all those sort of things, and cover the spread, blah blah blah. But Seattle, to me, I mean, even though they were controlling, dominating a Dolphins team, it still was kind of a closer game. And if the Dolphins get a touchdown late, spreads in jeopardy, and who knows what happens towards the end of the game. Instead of kicking a field goal, they go for it and things. And then, of course, they have backup quarterbacks that didn't really work out very well. But I'm not sure that I'm a believer in Seattle at the same rate that like ESPN is putting, or NBC maybe was putting his the new coach's picture up and saying how what an incredible start by the Seahawks. Seattle is back. Pete Carroll is probably rolling over in his cot, not yet grave,
I
and
was about to say,
it's
whoa.
and is like literally like whoa, this team's not that different. You made a good point. They have good wide receivers. Didn't seem to miss their running back Kenneth Walker, who was out last week.
Yeah.
Charbonnet though wasn't great to me, and Gino had a couple tipped balls that were interceptions, probably bad luck, and might have extended a game or made it closer for longer than it should have been. But I'm just not sure that Seattle is that strong just yet. They're one of those 3-0 teams that I'm looking to potentially go the other direction and have a lot tougher time to get in the playoffs than I think most have thought.
Yeah, we've lost the value on any sort of division if you were interested. Plus 185 now.
Okay,
The
read them to me.
Seahawks.
So 49ers still a favorite?
Yeah, 49ers minus 110. Seahawks
Okay.
it's 185. And I've already
Rams.
switched the screen now. So
Okay.
if you
Well,
want the other two, we'll
I
chat
can
off.
look I can look it up. Okay.
We'll
Uh,
chat offline after this.
Great. We probably will. So now it's time for us to go through to finish our six pack. We have two other games to discuss. I usually let A underscore Snicker pick which one he wants to discuss the most, though it doesn't
Mm,
always involve our best bet, I gotta say. So
no.
we not giving anything away, telling anybody where that's going, but there are a lot of choices on a great board. So what game would you like to discuss?
Let's go. Let's go to the Meadowlands. Denver Broncos. Is that
So
what you were going to pick?
no, I was about to be like, we already did
We
that
already
Thursday
did that,
night.
bro. What are you talking about?
I'm
No,
amazed that they're doing
we're
two
gonna
New
fast
York.
forward 3 days and we're gonna go Denver Broncos against the Jets.
All right, two New York home games in the same weekend. I guess they'll be able to wash the New York Giants stench off the seats in there. All right, the Denver Broncos, a 7.5 point underdog with all the juice right now on the road at the New York Jets. Totals 38.5 in this one. So I'll start since you picked the game. The Jets with a lot of time to prepare, that's for sure. They dominated a really bad, let's not forget, New England's horrible beat Cincinnati in the opener and kind of got a little bit of few people off the scent and maybe this team was capable. But I also gotta say, I do have New York Jets under 9.5 wins right now, and Aaron Rodgers has made me nervous. So he's looked very good. He's also looked like he's been taking a lot more hits than I thought they would set him up for, especially in blowout games. They've done a really good job, I think, of limiting the hits on Breece Hall, but don't seem to want to do that with their 41-year-old quarterback. I can't explain that one really. Um, but at this point, to me, it seems like this is a big spread. 7.5, I think, speaks to a good Jets defense. But I guess probably the more interesting thing is the Broncos looked
What do you
hopeless.
think of the Broncos' performance against Tampa Bay?
I mean, they looked hopeless and then won at Tampa Bay. No one really liked the Bucks and were surprised by their start. Pretty small favorite to Washington in the opener. We're a big underdog at Detroit and deserved that win, I feel like, but was close. And there's some questions about Detroit at this point. Denver, I mean, certainly unexpected for a West Coast team or at least Mountain Time Zone team in an early start in a hot game in Tampa, somehow pulling off a big upset. I feel like that might be one of those, oh, how did that happen this year when we look back at the end of the season? I think from this at this point, I don't think Denver is any good, and I don't think I want much to do with this number. I think if anything, I'd lean under, though I got to say it's tough to hit under 38.5.
I know. And it feels like it's gonna, well, I can't go much lower than it already is. Here, I think Denver, Bo Nix is still extremely limited. Um, the Jets defense is not as good as we were thinking it was going to be. Again,
Well, it's hard because they were top whatever echelon in the league, it felt like to me
they're
last
still
year.
very good. Like, I guess I shouldn't say it like that. If we want to get really hammered down into like, yes, it's still like a top, what, 5, 6 defense.
Yeah.
They just like don't have the pass rush yet. Will McDonald, they're trying to bring these other guys along in the absence of Hassan Reddick. Um, but you and I have been on opposite sides with the Jets because I've been pretty interested in them. I think to me, like we've got Broncos going across the country, and I don't know their travel situation, but then if you're going back home after you play in Florida, and then you're going to travel back out and go to the East Coast. Meanwhile, you've got the Jets on 10 days of rest, um,
Back-to-back home games.
back-to-back home games. People feeling like Bo Nix is a little bit better than he is, and then you start realizing, oh wait, Tampa was missing half of its secondary, and they
And
gutted
there
out
are two
that
defensive tackles, I believe.
exactly. They gutted out that win against the Lions. Everyone kind of forgets and moves on past it, but it's like, oh wait, they still have a rash of injuries. That game was like setting up for the letdown spot after their trip to Detroit. I think this is we we're not going to advocate for like betting a 7.5 point favorite here, but like we're talking about early in the season, a lot of the big underdogs have been winning
Yeah.
outright.
Yep.
At some point in this season, water meets its level, and like the big underdogs start losing big. And we're usually nearing that point. Week 5, week 6, week 7. That's when the stinkers really start to show up. And this may be an opportunity if this were to get to 7. Maybe this is a good teaser opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, you could even just simply buy it down. I mean, we're at 7.5 right now, even money at Bet Online. Not
Yeah.
hard to get a -120, probably -130 because they know that's a key number.
Yeah, they'll jack it to
Um,
25 cents.
or 25. Yeah. So like not to me in the grand scheme of things, I'd much rather, I mean, dog me if you want at the real underscore G Warner Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. But I think it's for me, I'd rather push on a -7 and pay the tithe and pay the tax than lose on -7.5 if that
Yeah.
was where you're leaning on this one. Um, yeah, I
Where
feel
we
like
going? Where
what?
we going? Oh, I thought you were ready to go next. Sorry.
Well, I am. I was just gonna finish my thought if that's allowed and say that, the Broncos to me, like, I don't know what it would take for me to bet Bo Nix. Like maybe I'm the only one, but I have no belief, interest. I don't even think he threw a touchdown pass in a blowout win at Tampa. Not that you need to do that by any means, but I think the Broncos are a defensive team, and that's really all I want to do with them is unders. And I like I don't think Bo Nix is capable. I have a bias against rookie quarterbacks, I'll admit that, but especially ones that are drafted like 20 draft positions over because all these other quarterbacks went before it, and the Broncos were like, "Well, we got to do something." So for my pick to discuss, I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns visiting the Las Vegas Raiders. So we have the Browns. Oh, I love that reaction. The Browns, a 1 point underdog on the road. Total is 37 in this matchup. And while you wipe away the painstaking look on your face, I'm haven't been big moves in this one. A lot of points, but generally it's crossing zero, so not a big deal. First
Yeah.
initial number I saw, and I made Cleveland a 1.5 point favorite. That's where it opened. We're now all the way to Las Vegas, a 1 point favorite, which not a huge move, 2.5 points. And yes, there are some concerns with the Browns' offensive line. But I'd like to hear your thoughts, especially coming from someone who bet the Raiders last week and under and watched them get absolutely torched by my cousin, the Red Rocket, Andy Dalton. Someone actually in DC one time said, "Did you go to TCU?" I was like, "No, I went to Texas." And they're like, "You look like Andy Dalton." I'm like, "I don't think so." But I mean, I guess we do have
If
lack
hey,
of
if you
pigmentation.
Griffin, you should just take that compliment because I think you're probably half a foot shorter than Andy
Oh, I mean,
Dalton.
I'll definitely take the height and probably the physical ability. A bit, I mean, my spiral's all right, but it only goes about 5 yards.
Oh man. Did you know Deshaun Watson got sacked 8 times on Sunday?
Well, I guess that was the long arm of the law. No, just kidding. He beat that charge too, it seems.
Okay, here's the thing. Um, the Browns can't protect their quarterback that can't throw the ball. It's as simple as that. We're 3 weeks in, and that's how it has to be. Myles Garrett has is not playing well. They're down to like their third string offensive lineman. Like
Not
we talk
great.
about cluster injuries, they've been wrecked with cluster injuries on the offensive line. I don't know where this offense can go. Yes, I don't know if I'll have a Raiders bet all season. I think you did the one for both of us, to be honest, on
I don't know.
Sunday.
I think I've bet every Raiders game. No, I did not bet them
Have
against.
you? Oh
So I
yeah,
bet the
well,
Raiders under in week one, which was
yes.
great. That worked very well. But
Yeah, yeah,
I think that
yeah,
was
yeah.
more of a Chargers than or as a
Yes.
combination of the two. Okay, so you're
Um,
never going to bet the Raiders. Interesting.
I, I can't because Antonio Pierce, again, we can go back to, I can just keep bashing on the Cowboys. Like if we had a hierarchy of coaches, it would be like Antonio Pierce here and then Mike McCarthy just a little bit above. Like that's
Mhm.
where we're at. And that's what I think about him as a head coach. Um, the run that they had on the end of last year can only save you for so long. Um, yeah, yes, and I saw the press conference on Tuesday. He came out and was just all fired up doing his normal stuff, but like the scheme just isn't there. And I just don't, I cannot find a way to believe in the Raiders going forward. But the Browns are equally disgusting, and it's taken a lot of shine off of Stefanski as an offensive mind. Um, is it like we've talked about how their offense really needs a great running back? I don't think Jerome Ford is that kind of guy. Like would Nick Chubb, a fully healthy Nick Chubb, make a difference? Probably, because they base so much off of a dominant run game, um, to then open up the pass. It, it's a mess. But yes, like did I look at this and think, am I about to bet the Browns this week? Maybe, maybe.
Yes, the one trick pony that loses its trick all of a sudden is just a pony, and that's not great in a race of stallions, as you might say.
Right, if you're my
Um,
daughter, if there's a pony around, she'd be fired up. Just letting you know.
well, you
Think
should.
about that for her birthday gift, by the way.
Nice. Okay. Sounds good. I think maybe you get her to draw one for Kevin Stefanski and he'll get inspired to figure out what to do with a right tackle and right guard who both look injured. So I guess he's going to run left, is what it seems like to me. I don't think running back is that important of a position in the world, in life,
It's
in
not. It's not.
in this either. I do think though, if they can't block, I don't think anyone's doing anything, quarterback or running back. I do think there's going to be a ton of Cleveland Browns fans in Las Vegas, though, and that does make some sort of difference. Gardner Minshew got the dreaded vote of confidence, so to me, there's a lot of possibilities here for a Cleveland Browns go on the road. And I guess it's technically an upset as a 1 point underdog right now, though it's the slimmest of all upsets you could ever expect. Also, wouldn't expect a ton of offense. I almost said runs offense in this one either. Looking at under 37 potentially, as I just continue to want to bet against the Las Vegas Raiders offense. And that brings us to the end of the show. It's time for ultimate best bets, or just our best bets. They're 4-0, our last four podcasts. I'll restate that when I cut our video. We are 17-7, 71% our last 24 after a really good playoffs. Great 5-1 start to this season. If you're not following us on the Twitters at @A_Snicker, at the real underscore G Warner, I'm also on Patreon, the same Instagram where you can find this 1 minute reel. And if you're not subscribed to our podcast, please do so at the real underscore G Warner on YouTube, plus 5-star reviews and Apple Podcasts, and Spotify would be huge. At @A_Snicker, the floor is yours.
Okay. I've been bouncing around through a couple. And this one is it's probably breaking some of the rules that you and I usually talk about here. Even what we just talked about on this podcast, actually. I'm going to take the Eagles on the road, -2.5 at Tampa Bay. For some of the reasons that we've already talked about, just the rash of injuries on Tampa's defense. Saquon Barkley announcing himself with an elite offensive line as the best running back in the league. And I'm just praying that Jalen Hurts doesn't throw up all over himself for the third straight week. So how about that for an endorsement? Like, this is again one that you could consider the money line, but if you're on the road and as a favorite, I'll take the 2.5 and live with it.
Yeah, because it probably means if they don't cover, they're probably losing the game straight up.
Yeah.
I think I see that as well. That's interesting. I was looking at that game as well. And we're not
We're
going
gonna
to
have a head-to-head combat.
we're not no, and we're not going to do a double best bet either. That's not how this works. Because I want to root for you, and I want to go because we can't if we go the opposite ways. Though I do kind of like Tampa in that game, I got to say, but that might be because I just really don't like a
I know you
certain
don't.
someone who I unfortunately cannot get over with. But that I mean, it is what it is at this point. I feel like Saquon, please stop ruining my life. And now it's my turn to start, so I'll go
Okay,
now.
go for it.
Hey, this is the real underscore G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. This is the best bet from Betting the Pitch NFL edition. We are 4-0 our last four, 17-7 our last 24 for a nice 71%, 5-1, 83% this entire NFL 2024-2025 season. At @_Snicker just gave you his best bet. You should tune in to our full length episodes every Tuesday night on YouTube at the real underscore G Warner and on Betting the Pitch on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify as well. But at @_Snicker, easy for me to say, he just gave you the I almost said Phillies, Philadelphia Eagles, a 2.5 point favorite on the road at Tampa. I'm going to go with the Steelers Colts under 40 in an early start. And just two offenses I don't see much from. Anthony Richardson hopefully will not throw the ball to the wrong team this time. And honestly, the Steelers pass rush has destroyed other offenses like the Chargers just last week. So grab the Eagles -2.5 and the under 40 in Pittsburgh at Indianapolis. And that'll do it for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. We will see you next week, hopefully celebrating a 6-0 start to the season. Talk to you all very, very soon. Goodbye at @_Snicker.